Hey everyone, welcome back. Want to thank our sponsors as we get started today. Fixed Ops Marketing, Traver Connect, Parts Edge, and Dynatron Software. If you're in the business of running a dealership, you owe it to yourself and your team to reach out to these fine companies. Now, are you ready for this guest this week? Sandy Cerami, 7 pillars of killer business development. This guy is a child of the industry, grew up with gas in his veins and still has it, way better hair than me, and just an incredible conversation. Coming up, can't wait to share it with you. Stay tuned. Welcome back, everybody. Fixed Ops Mastermind podcast. We are elated to have with us legendary Sandy Cerami, Chief Solutionist. Sandy, welcome.
Hey, Dave, how are you, buddy? You are really stretching the bounds of the definition of legendary, my friend. I can promise you.
Listen, I Googled it earlier, and your name came up, so I went with that. That's how we go.
Cost me a fortune. It's my SEO budget is forget it. It's through the ceiling right now.
Well, it's working, so it's well worth it. Happy to have you here today. You and I we talked off air a little bit about the fact that we are close to the same age, same generation, and we've seen a lot of changes in this automotive industry. Would you give people a little bit of background of where you came from?
Sure, absolutely. As we were talking off air, I grew up in the business. I was literally born into the business as a car brat. I call myself a third generation car brat because I followed in the footsteps of my grandfather, who founded a General Motors dealership back in 1957. And then my dad after him, and my wife and I ended up buying the store back in 2003 and ran that through till the GM bankruptcy proceeding in the end of 2008 and beginning of 2009. But I've grown up in the heart of the business and worked in literally every single department and facet of the business. The only chair that I have not sat is as the office manager or controller. And so I've had just an incredible opportunity over 34 years to be immersed in the business. Like we were talking about offline, there was no dipping the toe in the pool to see what the water was like. I was literally shoved right in day one as not even a teenager, as a 10, 11-year-old kid. But I've enjoyed every single second of it. It's a great blessing. Yeah,
it's excellent. And the chair you picked to not sit in is perfectly fine. The bean counters need to.
You're not kidding. I don't know. I was perfectly qualified for every chair I sat in, but that one we can all agree was not the one for me.
Well, in the automotive industry, being unqualified and sitting in chairs is almost a requirement. Right.
No question. No question.
That's how a lot of us came up through the business. You talk about putting your toe in and being pushed in instead. When I started my first day as a service advisor, hired by the dealer principal of a family Ford dealership, nobody knew I was coming except him. So showed up in the morning and everybody was like, "Who are you?" And the service manager said, "Okay, you're going to follow me around for the next couple of weeks and figure out what to do, and we'll go from there." And so I followed him around that first day. And the second day, 3 people called in sick on the desk. He goes, "Yeah, you're working right there."
That's a hell of an onboarding process.
That was it, man. I got 1 day of, and this was we actually did have ADP or CDK now. But old green screens and
oh, yeah.
This was like, and they had only had them a few months. This was early. This was 90, 91 maybe. It was early. And I got a day of watching him work on the thing. And then there you go. Open the door, 30 people coming in. You're trying to write repair orders. But was it.
I think there's something redemptive about that experience. As you and I were joking, off camera about the FitFo, and I'm going to give Mike DeRazio, the Mitsu dealer out of Pennsylvania, credit for this, to figure it the F out way that we were brought up and brought into the business. There's something redemptive about that, because I can remember when we were Reynolds and Reynolds, when our system went down, we had the dot matrix printers that were spitting out repair orders with the form feed. And when the computer went down, we hand wrote repair orders.
Yeah.
So I came into this business when we converted to, computer generated repair orders. So I knew how to write handwritten repair orders,
Right.
but you should have seen the look on people's faces when they had, no idea how to actually handwrite repair orders. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And I had experienced the previous store that I was at where I was a technician. It was all handwritten stuff. So I'd seen them writing, and that was a Ford store also. So I saw them writing the warranties on the 1863 forms and things. So I knew how to do that. And they still had, at this dealership, the stack of the old repair orders, because back then people think they have it bad with systems going down now. Man, oh man, back in the early days, if that thing made it through a day, it was incredible. So you were handwriting all the time. The difference was, back then, when the system went down, you could still get parts. They could still find stuff in the department.
Great point, yeah.
Now the system goes down, and it's like, everybody stands around like, we don't know what to do.
Well, I think that's part of the challenge. When we're working on the fixed operations side of the business these days, part of the challenge is the lack of understanding of the workflow, right, and of the document flow. Very often, and you have disparate pieces of the process, and unless they've had the experience of having to follow that document from cradle to grave, if you will, the why do we do it this way question seems to pop up and becomes a big piece of the training process ultimately.
Yeah, absolutely. And you see that, excuse me, you see that in the shop with technicians who don't like bringing repair orders back. And they're like, what do you need it for? You got it in the computer, and it's like, it's a piece of the puzzle, dude. We gotta have it you gotta have all those edge pieces before you can move to the middle of the puzzle. And
every once in a while, somebody happens to pop in from the factory and they'd like to see repair order.
Yeah, an actual legal document. So, you're absolutely right, and that's one of the things in Quantum when we go through the training. We take the pieces of that repair order flow, where it goes through the process, and as we're going through, we're not there to teach them a process, right? We're there to teach them skills that they can use within their process, but to lay that out, you have to lay out where in their process those skills work.
Correct.
And so we follow that flow. And for a lot of people, it's the first time they've seen that written out of that flow of the work and how it goes and how that customer goes from coming in the door to driving back out the door.
Yeah. It's funny you say that, because, we talk about process, and if we went to, 10 dealerships, we'd have 11 different processes that are used to get a repair order from cradle to grave. Just because of logistics, et cetera, how they've done things, historically in the past. But the fact that you guys are marrying specific skill sets and are able to move them around to adjust to any given process, I think is a credit to what you guys have built out.
Yeah, I appreciate that. You're right. You'd have 11 different processes, and of those 11 different processes, maybe one of them would be actually a written process, right? The rest are up in somebody's skull who just happen to be sitting in that chair that day.
Yep.
But yeah, it's one of the things with training, right? Is that anybody can come in and tell you've got to change this process. Like this doesn't work well. You have to change this process, but that's not always a viable solution. Right. Sometimes they're stuck with the process that they have. Sometimes they're landlocked. They don't have a service drive, or whatever it is. There's 1,000 different reasons why a process might have to be the way that it is. And so what you need is something to be able to work within that, right? Which is the skills that we all need for life, to navigate life. And that's the skill portion is something that transcends a dealership, right? It's something that all of us need to navigate every single day of our life, from our relationships at home to the relationship with the person you're getting your coffee from, to the customers. And so as you continue to build those skills, you help out everybody's entire life, not just the work life. And so one of the things that you've done very, very well is building culture within stores. Tell us a little bit about your process for building culture, because I think the culture is probably, maybe arguably, the most important thing within any organization.
I mean, I'll give you a foot stomp and amen on that point, and simply because it gets to the heart of why they're there, why we do things a particular way. I mean, the skill set is all about the how, the what and the how, what we do and how we do it. The why becomes critically important, and that's on an individual basis, right? Why does somebody get up in the morning and come in and do that they do every single day? What is the purpose and the mission of the dealership itself on an aggregate level is all part of the why as well. But I think, it was Peter Drucker said that culture will eat strategy for breakfast, 11 times out of 10. Right. And the reason he says that is because the people portion of our business, and I talked to Dave O'Brien about this a bit down at Business Bourbon and Cigars at the beginning of the month. People will very often quit the company or the culture of the company or the leadership of a company long before they become disillusioned with their job, if you will, right? It's not a matter of they can't do the job. It's a matter of they can't stomach doing the job where they're doing it. So right. Culture is a critical piece. It's the stickiest retention tool that we have in any business. It's not compensation. It's not necessarily career pathing. A lot of times it's culture that is the flypaper that keeps people sticking around, or is the greatest repellent that we have.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right, because if it was the job that drove them away, you wouldn't see people going from selling cars to selling cars at a dealership down the street, from being a service advisor at your store to being one down the street.
Absolutely.
Right? They would.
Yeah, what are they chasing? I mean, they're chasing the opportunity to find and it's just such an often overused term, but the culture that fits for them. Yes. A lot of times what we talk about is making sure that we've created a clarity in terms of the understanding of who it is that we want to be. And I ask a very simple question when I'm talking to the leadership of an organization, or I'll talk to the people that are boots on the ground, and I'll say, if I had to ask you 2 or 3 words to describe the culture of your organization or your company, what 2 or 3 words would you give me? And I'm often struck by, at times, the actual continuity of the terms that I hear. I hear the same thing over and over and over again, where I see there's a lot of clarity and there's a tight culture. And when I see that there's not a real great culture in an organization, usually there's a wide-ranging disparity of terms that I hear, and none of them very flattering. It's a lot of frustration and whatnot. And it speaks to ultimately the performance of a business and certainly the retention.
Yeah, absolutely. And retention is a giant word in the industry, finally getting the recognition that it deserves the last few years, as OEMs start to get on board and start to understand that retention number has been way more important than they ever gave it credit for.
Yeah.
Not just from the
because
standpoint.
They've been talking about a different retention, Dave. They've been talking about client retention, which is critical.
Right.
But I think client retention is a byproduct of associate retention, right? The folks that are on the team. And I think of people like David Spizak, Ed Roberts down at Bozard Ford, Michael Poro, who's at Louisville Honda World, where they have really focused on making sure that they are really in tune with their people and driving a more positive, a more creative culture, a culture that's in tune with what's going on boots on the ground in their organizations. And you see it in the retention numbers. I think Michael Poro's team was able to drive their employee retention above 90%.
Wow.
For the first time in a long time, which is amazing. He's in single digits in terms of turnover. Ed over at Bozard, Ed Roberts, has been there for a couple of years, and David Spizak, I believe, had a 2% or less than 2% turnover in his store out in San Francisco. So those are folks that I think about when I start to think about how important culture is to retention, and ultimate profitability is what everybody's chasing.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was what I was driving at with the retention, is that it is the employee, the team retention that makes that difference, right? I mean, every store that I went into, I told them that our focus was taking care of them so that they could take care of our customers, and the money would follow that, right?
Yep.
Anybody can go into a store and raise your gross profit number, raise your effective labor rate, charge a little more for an oil change, whatever it is, sell more alignments, right? Anybody can do those things. But to truly, over the long term, if you're playing the long game, the only way that you're going to do that is to have happy employees who make happy customers, and happy customers will spend more money. It's a really simple equation that has a lot of it's like an algebra equation, right? It's got the brackets which have it look really simple, but inside there's a whole bunch of goop inside there that you need to figure out. So it's a simple equation to get to making more money, which is take care of your internal customers, your team, your external customers, and that the equal sign will come up to money. But people have a hard time figuring out culture, right? Because it's a I was going to say inanimate word. You can't touch culture. You can't hold it. I can't hand you a process for culture, right?
Yeah.
Because
but I do know what it is. I can feel it. Like when I'm in, if I walk through the doors of a dealership or a service operation, I can feel that culture walking through the door.
Absolutely.
I can see it. You're right. It's not tangible, but you can certainly see it and feel it and hear it when you walk into a place that's got incredible culture. We say all the time in our company that the math will always follow the mindset. Very rarely will I see it happen the other way. If we need to take care of a math problem, whether it's a performance issue, a CSI issue, a productivity issue, a profitability issue, if the mindset isn't right, the math is never going to follow.
I love that. I'm going to steal that, and I wish you had given that to me 20 years ago when I was working at stores, so I could have used that.
Well, Dave, you know as well as I do, we come from the same generation. A lot of this stuff we had to figure out the hard way. I mean, I'm making mistakes today. I'm learning as we go today, because we're having a bit of a change of the guard in our business right now. Certainly a change in terms of how we run our businesses, more data driven today than ever. I think a lot of times we tend to forget the people piece of it because we get so hung up on the data and the math and the intel and the internet piece of the business that we lose sight of the fact that it's still the people that are buying and selling every single day in our business. And that's what makes it go. Yeah.
I mean, I've had this conversation with Ed Roberts and Jeff Daniel and Mike Vogel a whole bunch of times, where we're in the automotive business and on the fixed op side, we're fixing cars, but really our business is taking care of people, right? Whether that's an internal customer or external. That's what we're really doing. Yeah, we fixed a car, but we're still taking care of people, and whether they're driving a car, a snowmobile, or a coffee cup in, it's not that we're working on. It's the person and treating the person correctly.
Well, I think the fundamental responsibility that we have is to help them make the best decision possible for them regarding the service and maintenance of their vehicle, if we're talking about fixed operations. And very often they're coming in, they're intimidated because, look, I have to be completely honest with you. I can barely change oil or a tire myself personally. The mechanical piece is not where I excel. But most of the people coming through the door are the same way. If you pop the hood, they look at an engine, they all look the same to them, to be honest with you. What they want to do is avoid making a mistake or making a bad decision. And so it's so much of what we do is based on, helping people make the best decision possible, building that level of trust and confidence that we're the most trusted advisor or resource that they can have, so that when they're not quite sure what to do or who to call, it's our phone that rings or our email inbox or instant message inbox that dings with the question,
Yeah, absolutely. At Quantum 5, that's one of the things that we say to our clients is that we want to change this from being transactional. I want you in a customer's phone as my car guy or my car girl, whatever it is, right? They have a plumber, they have a landscaper, they have a pool person, they have an electrician, they have a dentist, they have all these things, right? But for the car, a lot of people don't have a person that they go to. And if you treat somebody right, you'll become their car person. And even if you move from that store, they'll follow you. It doesn't matter.
We see that happen all the time. We really do.
Yep.
Service advisor, even technicians moving with their book of business, moving with them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's imperative for this business going forward that more people realize that and start taking care of customers the way a lot of other businesses have taken care of customers, making things easier for them. Look, Amazon isn't what it is because it always has the cheapest price. It is what it is because it made it easy for the customer.
Thank you for saying that, because we have this conversation very often. It's not about being the lowest price. As a matter of fact, what we're seeing right now on both sides of the house, front and back end, so variable and fixed operations, the average transaction is obviously, moving north right now. Mm-hmm. And so we're having different conversations with folks, but they're different versions of the same conversation we've always had, because prices have always accelerated and gone up for the most part on both sides of the house. But if we're going to focus on the dollars and cents, then it's going to be all about the transaction and not the relationship. If we can make a difference in terms of their experience and a difference in terms of how they feel about the relationship that we have with them in terms of trust, then you make a difference. The dollars, again, they'll follow.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. 100%. As we switch gears a little bit, I told you before we started recording that I'm going to the NADA this year, and it is the first time in my life that I have gone to NADA. I am excited to get there and meet people who I have known for all these years and have never actually met in person. Yeah. So that is going to be pretty exciting. Tell us a little bit about some of your experiences with NADA.
Well, we were talking offline. It's funny because when I went to the NADA General Dealership Management Academy about 1 million years ago, it was 1995, 96 timeframe. And I remember the second meeting that we had was in December. And at that time, it used to rotate around the country in 6 different spots around the country to make the travel, equitable for everybody. And so we were in Houston. And everybody in the class was talking about NADA coming up in the end of January, beginning of February. And, are you going? And I didn't even know what the hell they were talking about, to be completely honest with you. 95, 96, I didn't know that NADA existed beyond the academy. And when they came back after the next session, and they were talking about what fun they had, the products that they saw, the experience that they had, I felt like I missed something. I had terrible FOMO. Okay. Like I had the fear that I really missed out on something. And so I made it a point. I said, I'm going to get there next year, which I did. So in 1997, I believe it was in Atlanta. It was my first show ever. And boy, I was blown away. What it did for me was it, first of all, exposed me to the business on a scale and scope that I had not envisioned in my mind prior to that. I had just had my mind blown by reading a financial statement for the first time, but then I saw the scope and scale of this business, and I understood how important it was, and it really lent a lot of purpose to my career at that point at a young age. And so it was exciting. That's why I'm excited for you, because if you've not been out to the NADA convention, and it's changed a bit over the course of the last 25, 30 years that I've been going, it's an incredible experience, especially the first time. You'll never forget the first time.
Yeah, Dave O'Brien and I were talking, and he was like, he said, you'll be amazed as you walk through there as somebody who's been in the business for 30 plus years, that you'll walk through there and go, I've not heard of half of these companies that are
incredible,
here.
Right?
Incredible.
And space is not cheap. Dave O'Brien will tell you, space on the floor of the exposition is not inexpensive.
Right. Exactly. And it always amazes me. I think it amazes a lot of people who are even in this business to understand that there are 18,000 plus new car franchise dealerships. Never mind all the Carvanas and CarMaxes and Joe's used car lots around. 18,000 plus new car franchise dealerships in this country. That's an incredible number. It's like a McDonald's and a dealership.
And Dave, we've had an increase year over year from 2021 going into 2021, now going into 2022. In spite of COVID, we've had an increase in the number of dealership rooftops,
which is incredible, right? Everybody talks about nobody having any cars, and yet people are buying dealerships and opening dealerships. So
Yeah.
It's
Well, listen, I was on the road. I was on the road today. It's funny because, we were in a number of different stores. We were in an Infiniti store. We were in a Chevrolet store. We were in a BMW store, and different levels of inventory at each one of the stores. But, this song was the same. Everybody's saying, I wish we had more inventory. And I stopped each one of the managers that I spoke to, and I said, but do you really?
Yeah.
Do you really wish you had more inventory? Because, the difference is that you don't have the same level of transaction value when the supply is a little bit less tight.
Right. And so that's one of the things that's changed in our industry over the years, right? When you and I first started, we didn't have those kind of massive inventory levels back then. These dealerships were on smaller lots, right? When maybe you had 100 cars on your lot, maybe 100 cars, but you didn't have 57 Sentras with every possible different color and option available for somebody to look at.
Yeah. Yeah. I think, well, I come from the domestic world. We had a Pontiac GMC Isuzu store in Paramus, and we had pretty heavy inventory. As a young kid, I was the guy that was gassing all the inventory. I was cleaning the cars, for delivery during prep. And I was the guy that was rearranging the lot, after the weekend where it just got completely destroyed in terms of organization. And I can remember having, at any given time, 100 Firebirds, 100 Isuzu Troopers in stock. At one point, 125 Fieros. I mean, so I remember having the availability in terms of inventory as a domestic dealer. But I think the big difference is how we transact now. I go back to those days. My early days was the only thing we had to consider was a rebate or a low APR finance option for the incentives for the clients. Now we have so many different ways that we've got to structure a deal, or different ways that we can structure a deal. The inventory levels aside, that is probably the largest amount of complexity that we have in the front end side of the business.
Yeah, I would agree. So going down that road, to expand on that a little bit more, what do you see? What do you see continuing? Obviously, there were a lot of things during COVID that changed, that got accelerated. Do you see a lot of that continuing, or do you see some of that falling back into line to the dreaded phrase, the way we've always done it?
I see we will have a little bit of contraction. It's like a rubber band. They've stretched, our perception here a bit in terms of what business is going to be. I think that you'll see some of the manufacturers are going to be intelligent about this. I always put Toyota, Lexus at the tippy top of that hierarchy in terms of their business acumen. I think they'll be smart in terms of their inventory. They always have been. Honda probably as well. And even the Highlines, right? Where the BMWs have really pushed a bit, even Mercedes in the past years, in terms of pushing the envelope, in terms of inventory levels. Audi seems to have gotten that piece of it somewhat right as well. But I do see the domestics it'll be tough for them to resist the urge to produce more vehicles.
Yeah.
When you start to see the manufacturers that are losing the market share battle right now, their first response is going to be to produce more vehicles, in my humble opinion.
Yep.
That'll be their response to a shrinking of their market share, because it's been going on for a long time. But I don't think we'll ever go back to seeing en masse every single manufacturer forcing a glut of inventory on the dealer lots. Now, that said, I think the business model is going through some transition right now. And I think that everybody's got Tesla-itis right now. Every one of the manufacturers has it. They're lying if they tell you otherwise. Ford just announced that they're going to attempt, or at least investigate, spinning off the EV portion of their business. Beware, Ford dealers. Beware, all domestic dealers, maybe all dealers in total, because that's a heck of a shot over the bow right now. We went down this with the Ford retail network years ago.
Right.
I can remember Ed Mullane, God rest him. Ed Mullane was a Ford dealer at Bergenfield, New Jersey, fighting the Ford retail network, or Ford. He had the Ford Dealer Alliance in response to it. But what my good buddy, Mr. Mark Geron, and I have talked about over the course of the last couple of weeks, and my buddy, Mr. Ron Marvo, who's my right-hand guy, is that you'll see them bifurcate the business model, and they'll use the EV piece of it in order to get it done. That's their leverage, right?
Yeah.
And you've already seen it happen where they've got special pricing. They've got the ability to transact online,
Right.
and they'll make it almost impossible for a dealer not to fall in line long term if we continue down the path that we're going. So I hope that the dealers are aware and are going to pay attention and make the calculated moves that they need to as a group, as a unit, to make sure that they are not completely railroaded here.
Yeah, I agree. I think that maybe is something that that trying to think of how to phrase that people aren't keeping their eye on the ball with, right? I mean, similar to on a much larger scale, but this kind of happened back in the late 80s, early 90s, right? When dealerships told people to go to tire stores to get tires. Like, we can't compete for tires.
Yeah, absolutely.
And now that's
right,
all
now
they do.
We're begging for them to come back.
We're begging for them to come back. And now you're starting to see a bunch of parts being sold online, right? And they're like, it's oil filters, it's air filters, it's all small stuff. Yeah, that's what we said about tires too. For those who watch history and see history repeat itself, that's what I see when I look at that. Yes, that's called testing the water, right? That's the person putting their toe in the water right there.
Yeah, well, especially today where you can, where you've got companies like Amazon, you've got companies like Walmart that can go to scale like that. They've got every resource that they need. All they're going to do is ABC test it to figure out the best path to their objective. But you're absolutely right. We have seen this before, and dealers do need to be paying attention. There's something called the compound effect. And so, a little plus a little plus a little pretty soon adds up to a lot. And before you know it, they've taken a significant piece of your business away, a significant piece of your profitability away. So we've got to be aware of it right now. I see a really unique opportunity, and we talked about this at Business Bourbon and Cigars. Dave was there, Dave O'Brien, where we talked about some really groundbreaking ideas about how to either strategically partner with, or acquire independent shops in your market in order to increase your ability to drive more throughput for your recon operations, maybe charging station capability, in a given market. So there's a lot of different things that dealers can look at right now to combat what we've got coming down the pike. But it's going to be coming a heck of a lot quicker than it has been in the past, because the technology and the ability to parse data is like we've never seen before. Forget Moore's law at this point.
Right.
It's we're doubling our ability to digest data and make decisions off of it at a pace that makes Moore's law look like a snail.
It's the acceleration is amazing. How quickly stuff comes, and in the automotive business where it seems like they're very resistant to change. What does happen is that when it does change, it's overnight, right? We go from doing things one way, the old way, to a new way overnight, where people are going, "What happened? When did that happen?" Right, and we need to make sure that's not detrimental to our business as things start happening. Business Bourbon and Cigars, unbelievable event that yourself and Scott Joseph put on. Obviously, you're on the Fixed Ops Mastermind podcast. I'm a big believer in the mastermind principle. Tell us a little about that, because I think the event is amazing that you bring these people together to help each other, right? A lot of times these may even be competitors or seeming competitors, but they're there to make each other better. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. So I will say this to you, it literally emanated as a result of COVID. So we talk about, the impact that COVID-19 has had on the world and our business specifically. And early on, it was, people were running around like their hair was lit on fire. I go back to a decision. Yeah. Well, I lost a little up here, as you can tell. I was able to get the fire out as it got to this part of my forehead. But, we made a decision in our business specifically. Once the lockdown happened on March 20th, we actually retracted all of our invoices retroactively to March 1st. We did not bill any clients.
Wow.
And we made that decision not without pain. I can promise you,
Yeah.
you shut off the revenue spigot, you feel the pain. But I also knew that my clients were not making any money at that point in time. And so, you go through the first month of that. And so I went no revenue in March because we sent back checks to clients. No revenue in April, and about halfway through April, I called Scott Joseph, who's been a colleague and a collaborator of mine for the last 4 or 5 years. He's a brilliant guy. I said to him after the conclusion of Business Bourbon and Cigars 3 down in Bonita Springs that one of the greatest blessings in my life outside of my family is my friendship with him and my opportunity to collaborate with him. But we got together. I said, let's grab a bourbon. Is it a Friday afternoon? We'll grab a bourbon, a cigar. We need to brainstorm because I have a lot of clients asking questions I don't necessarily have the answers to. I'd love to figure some of this stuff out with you. We've got to have some type of solution path for our clients because a lot of them were shut down completely. In Jersey, we couldn't sell cars. We could only service essential vehicles. Yep. It was nuts. Pennsylvania, Rob Ruth out in Pennsylvania was like the poster child for frustration. And so we sat down and had a bourbon and a cigar, and we brainstormed for 2.5 hours. And some of the ideas that we took out of that initial brainstorming, we've already put into practice and have been doing for the last two years or so. But that turned into another week doing it, and then another week doing it. And then we invited Jamil Zabaneh, the president of J&L Marketing, another just brilliant guy. And we started inviting dealers and GMs to join us. And then we got fixed operations directors. Ed Roberts was on as well. And we went about 15 weeks in a row where we would do, about 2, sometimes 3 hours with our guests and just brainstorm ideas back and forth. And in October of 2020, let me digress. In August of 2020, I said, Scott, we got to get this live. Like people are itching at this point to get out. Now, that wasn't a really ideal time to travel, but we were able to put together, I believe it was 22 people altogether between sponsor partners and dealer members of Business Bourbon and Cigars 1 out in Louisville. And it has grown to close to 50 now. That's about where we're going to keep it, 50, 60. We've got room for about another 10 or 12 dealer partners, dealer members to come in. But beyond that, we want to keep it, manageable and intimate so that there is that level of peer-to-peer interaction. But we attack relevant real-world problems over the course of a day and a half, and we brainstorm and we have each group come up with ideas and present those ideas to the greater group in the room. And some of the stuff that I shared with you earlier with respect to strategically partnering with independents around you or acquiring independents and looking at the electric vehicle opportunities a bit differently came out of Business Bourbon and Cigars 3, down in Bonita Springs. And we're looking forward to number 4 in Louisville in September.
That's awesome. It's a great event and such a powerful thing to be able to put the egos aside, right, and come together as people that understand the business. But as Napoleon Hill said, you take one mind and another mind, you don't get two. Yes. You get a completely separate third mind, right? So,
well, Dave, you get it. You obviously get it. And you make a great point. The egos are checked at the door, and we've got some incredible operators, right? I mean, Adam Aarons, Michael Porro, Ed Roberts. We got David Spizak, and we got some Dave Boyle, Arnold Gasita. I mean, we've got really, really bright people that join us on a regular basis, and nobody comes in with any agenda other than let's roll up our sleeves, let's have some fun, which we do. We have a ton of fun, Dave.
Of course.
I'd be lying if I said otherwise. But we make progress and we develop breakthrough ideas as a result of it.
Yeah, that's what it's all about, and it's what this industry is about, right? It's we talked earlier about the 18,000 plus dealers. I'm convinced you could take all of the people that work in this industry, and if you could find a stadium big enough to put them in, everybody would come in and just have a great time together, right? It's amazing. The relationships, I think about the relationships that we've cultivated as a result of it. I mean, Brad Mugg at Honda of downtown LA, another guy, like I never would have met Brad Mugg. Like our paths wouldn't have crossed. He's on one coast, I'm on the other. Yeah. Our paths would never have crossed, but as a result of Business Bourbon and Cigars, there's a guy that I can pick up the phone, and if I've got a question or I need a little bit of an assist on something, I can pick up the phone and call Brad Mugg like that. Yeah. That's what that event is about. It's about driving relationships, and we've got so many repeat attendees because of the fact that
they're able to pick up the phone and call each other and solve problems together.
Right. And it's exactly the same way with the weekly Fixed Ops Mastermind on Tuesday nights.
Exactly.
I know people all over the country. In Canada, we've had people from Australia. Again, I'm Massachusetts born and raised. You're New Jersey. We're in our little corner of the world, and there's no need to go any further than this, right? But because of some of this technology, I started online before COVID and happened to look smart when COVID came along. But
I remember that, by the way, because I remember you and I having a conversation. That's why I said to you that we're so overdue, because 3 years ago, I don't remember I think I had reached out to you because I saw what you were doing. I was like, buddy, I think what you're doing is awesome. Anything that I can do to help promote it, please let me know, because I loved your approach. Your approach was egoless. It was designed to start a discussion in the greater realm of the internet, if you will.
Yeah.
And asking the kind of questions that some people were uncomfortable asking.
Right. But and through that, just like the Business and Bourbon event has created for you guys, it just expands your network, right, of people that you can call and ask a question to, who are going to give you an answer, and they'll give you a straight answer. Right. Let's not. That's
a fact.
You're not gonna get anybody that's gonna sugarcoat anything for you. They'll give you a straight answer. If you're doing something stupid, they're gonna tell you. And it's so great to have those relationships. And as we were talking about with NADA, a lot of these people I have never met in person, and yet I consider them brothers in this industry. You know, they're not just somebody I would call and ask a question about the business. They know what my kids' names are. I know what theirs are. I know what's going on with their parents, things like that. It's amazing what it does.
You say that, Dave, and I think you're so on the mark. It's like the Andy Warhol effect, right? Everybody's gonna be famous for 15 minutes in the future. And when we talk about this, right, when I do sales or business development training, whether it's in the service drive or with salespeople on the showroom floor, or a non-automotive, when I'm in real estate or I'm in banking and financial services, we talk about the fact that you have the ability to be in front of somebody in their living room, anytime you want to. Right. And so what that facilitates is this level of familiarity. So when you bump into somebody you've never met before physically out at NADA, it's going to be like two old friends, doing the bro hug or the bear hug for the first time, and feeling like you know each other.
It's absolutely true. The first time I went to one of Ted Ng's roundtables, not the one in New York where he did the first one, which is where I first met Scott Joseph, by the way.
Right.
The first one that he did in LA, and I started meeting people that I'd known online. It was amazing. Like, you see them and you're like, oh, that's Sandy Cerami. And you have a conversation, and it's like just meeting down at Dunkin' Donuts, right? Yeah. It wasn't like you had never met the person before.
And the guard is down, right? So when you have the opportunity to ask questions, and there's that level of and it's not even familiarity, it's empathy for the challenges that we're facing that are not unique to us. Although, prior to the internet, we kind of felt sometimes isolated and like, I'm the only one going through this. And like, you see, holy crap, there's hundreds of other people that are experiencing a similar challenge to what I am. Let me ask them how they're tackling it. What did they do to solve it?
Absolutely. And people come out to lend that help, right? That when COVID first started, on the mastermind, what we started doing was, I called it the road to profitability. And I had people like Sean Reyes from Recall Masters that gave away some services.
Buddy Dan Barris, I do some work with Dan Barris over at Traction with Dan Barris, Dave Boyle, Scott Ray.
I'm looking forward to, I've known Dan for a while now, another guy I've never met. I'm looking forward to meeting him at NADA finally.
You need to connect with Dan. He's one of the funniest, and I mean funniest guys you will encounter at NADA. He's also a good-looking son of a gun, for God's sake. I look at him and I said, buddy, I got mirrors in my house. I cover them up. If I had your good looks, I wouldn't spend but 3 minutes outside the mirror.
Yeah, exactly. I tell people all the time, you don't have to worry about me being two-faced, because if I was, why would I wear this one around? Yeah. Dan is a great guy, and early on,
And smart as hell.
Yeah. Early on in the mastermind, I had a conversation. Sean hooked me up with him. I had a conversation with him about the mastermind and things. And again, we talked about ego less. This guy owed me nothing. I had nothing I could offer him. And, I mean, he gave me all kinds of advice and, hey, try this, do this. Let me hook you up with this person, that person. Just absolutely amazing people in this business. And I forgot where I was going with that.
Dave, I think that's important that we recognize. And that is that over the course of the last 2 years or so, the level of generosity has exponentially increased in our business. I've grown up in this business, 34 years this year in this business, and it's been at times the most cynical, skeptical business that there is. But I will tell you that as a result of COVID, I've seen the level of generosity and compassion and empathy exponentially increased and raised to a point where it's elevating our business, right? And it's elevating the interactivity of our business at this point. What I hope happens is that the supply and demand piece has had a potentially difficult, troubling impact on the relationships that we have with our client base. And I spent the day today on the road prior to jumping on to do the podcast. And I was just looking for feedback. Ron Marvo is my right-hand guy, and I jumped in the car today, went to 3 dealerships, and we're just asking about what's going on transactionally right now.
Right.
I hope that level of empathy that we have for each other starts to bleed into the client realm as well, because they're having a tough time out there, our clients. They're dealing with, repair bills and car payments that are significantly more than they've been used to in the past. And I get the whole inflation brings every boat a bit higher.
Right.
But at the end of the day, when the CPI outpaces the income inflation, it's going to come back and bite us if we don't handle it the right way.
Yeah, no doubt. I remember where I was going with the Sean Reyes was that he came out with Recall Masters and gave away free to the people that were on the call their services to help them keep some income coming in that wasn't going to cost their customers anything. Right? So they could reach out to clients, still get business coming in, keep their service advisors working, keep their techs working, keep them feeding their families. And he wasn't the only one. There were a bunch of other companies. Russ Hill from Fixed Ops Marketing had a bunch of free stuff for people on the calls. It was incredible that these guys, again, they nothing there except empathy for what everybody was facing. And
circle of wagons.
Absolutely. It was I know COVID was a very difficult time for a lot of people in this country around the world. I count myself fortunate and grateful that I was not one of those, that I was able to keep working in an industry that was deemed essential, and to keep growing the number of people who are available out there to help other people. It's an incredible business. Sandy,
it's a smart approach, right? I mean, we can grow the pie bigger together,
right?
And sometimes we got to keep the pie from falling apart. And this was a perfect example of the last 2 years of making sure the pie didn't crumble and fall apart.
Absolutely. It's all about the crust, right? It's all about the crust.
Yeah.
Sandy, thank you so much for being with us. This has been an incredible conversation. And believe it or not, we're coming up on almost an hour.
I've enjoyed every second, buddy. It was, as I said, overdue, and I appreciate you taking the time and extending the invitation. I'm honored.
We appreciate you being here. Where can people reach out to you if they want to get a hold of you?
You can go to sandycerami.com is the easiest place, SandyCerami.com. My phone number is pretty simple. It's 201-753-1234. If I can't pick up, send me a text. We'll always answer those fairly quickly. And my email address is sandy@sandycerami.com.
That's all pretty simple, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. Excellent.
That's it.
Thank you very much for being here. Grateful to have you.
Thanks, Dave. Appreciate it, buddy.
Take care.